Hey, so today we're going to be talking about why massive output is essential if you want to become a great artist. I want to start off here by giving you some examples of artists and creators who have huge volumes of work. These range from content creators like YouTube channels to Renaissance painters. So we'll cover a few different examples here. When I talk about artists here as well, I'm not just talking about painters or drawers, I'm talking about any type of creation, even in the most abstract forms. So you might think of a traditional artist as someone who draws things on paper, uh, and then you could take that up a level and think of people that make music or films. But I'm also talking about even creating things with your body. So even martial arts is the clues in the name. It's a type of art. So we're talking about anything where you're creating something out of nothing here. Okay, so we're going to start off with a classic example, Picasso. So Picasso created a huge body of work. He created around 12,000 drawings and 1,800 paintings in his lifetime. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is going to be a theme that we're going to go over in this video and use this to help you, only a handful of those pieces of work actually became something that made a name for himself. So he is only recognized for a very small percentage out of all of that work that he made. And you're going to see this recurring in artists that you might follow or look up to. If you actually go back, often if you look at early bodies of work, they're of lower quality and they don't really have any recognition, and they sometimes take a very long time to come up and actually make something of themselves. One of my favourite parable books of all time is the very, very famous Paulo book, The Alchemist. And actually, when The Alchemist was written, it sold something like 2 copies. And then I think over the course of a couple of years, it sold a few more. You know, we're talking like 10 copies or something. To say it was a flop would be an understatement. It couldn't have been more disheartening for the author, and he continued to and pressed on and wrote several books after that. And it wasn't until he'd written quite a few more books that The Alchemist became the success that it was. It's a renowned book now, one of the best of all time, arguably. So it took a long time for that to actually manifest, and if he'd given up at the first hurdle, he would have probably never experienced the success of the first book that he wrote. So I'm going to talk about some YouTube channels now, because this is a modern day artist, right? Everyone's a content creator. So many people are making YouTube videos, and what typically happens, you do have some exceptional cases where people make very high quality or very engaging content, or just content that has good thumbnails or clickbaity type titles where they might get a lot of traction early. I have seen some channels do that. A good example of doing this well is the channel Adam something. He got up to something like 1 million subscribers in under 50 videos because his videos were such high quality. But those are exceptions. The majority of the time you actually see it takes a lot more before people start getting traction. So one of my favorite YouTube channel of all time, actualize.org, which is basically a guy, Leo Guerra, and he's just talking at the camera the same way that I am now. This is kind of where I got the idea for making my videos from. And he has 529 videos currently. So 529 videos that are an average 2 hours in length. So we're talking probably somewhere in the region of 1,000 hours of content. Some of his videos are 4 or 5 hours, and his early videos were 20 to 30 minutes in length. But if you go back and look at his oldest videos, they don't have many views. I think his first one has something like 10,000 views or 8,000 views. And you might be thinking, well, that's a lot, because if I publish a YouTube video, it only gets 10 views. So 10,000 is a hell of a lot. But bear in mind, he has well over 1 million subscribers now, and the likelihood is people like myself have gone back and watched his old content. So I started watching his videos around 7 years ago, and his channel's around 10 years old. So, I missed the first 3 years of content. And so, I did go back and watch some of it, but the quality was significantly lower, not just in terms of production, the audio and video, but also just the depth of things that he was talking about. It was very surface level personal development, how to be healthy and how to be disciplined and this kind of thing, which is obviously useful information. But I really enjoyed his deeper content a lot more, which he got into in the following years. But it's a great example of someone who pressed on and committed to something despite not getting traction early, because the likelihood is you won't get traction early as an artist or a creator. So another channel, this is a controversial channel. He's actually a vegan YouTuber. I'm not a vegan myself, but I do find his videos entertaining. And I'm not endorsing everything he says because I don't agree with a lot of it, but he's just entertaining to watch. So Durianrider, Durian, Durian, Durianrider. So he's a cyclist and a vegan YouTuber. He's probably the craziest example I could find of consistency in terms of making videos. So he currently has around 6.2k, so over 6,000 videos. And he's been posting basically every day for the last 16 years. So if that isn't dedication to artistry, I don't know what is. Some of his videos, especially his early videos, have even lower views than the actualized example I gave. Some of his videos have a few hundred views or a couple of thousand, his early ones. But he's just pumped out such a massive volume of content. And it is entertaining, and it got more entertaining over time. The quality is all, sometimes very low. his early content, anyway. I think now he has proper production, but his early ones are, just a phone, and he's not even using stabilizers or anything like that. He's one of those people who was just shooting raw videos and making entertaining content, and he gained traction that way. But when I actually went back and reviewed the timeline of his posts, it followed a very similar trend to the actualized channel. So the average, actually when I investigated this, the average number of videos I found that it took before a channel gained traction was around 100. So I noticed it took anywhere from 80 to 150, with an average, I'd say, of around 100 videos before they started climbing in view counts. So one of the ways I measured this is I looked at some YouTube channels and saw, well, when was their first 6-figure video? Because I would say once you get 100,000 views on a video, that's pretty significant. And if you're getting 100,000 views consistently on videos, it's to the point where you can start making some money. I used to have a wrestling channel that covered different topics about wrestling, and I think I had an average of 200,000 to 300,000 views per video, and that was it made some money. It wasn't wildly profitable, but that's when you could start making money. This was back in the day as well. This was before there was minimums for monetization. So YouTube now, you have to have a minimum number of subscribers and views and that kind of thing to monetize your channel. But back then that wasn't the case. You could monetize off the bat. Because I wouldn't have I didn't have the subscriber limit. I wasn't trying to create a product or a brand or anything. I was just uploading these videos for fun. So it didn't have the minimum subscribers, I think 1,000. I didn't push people to subscribe or anything like that. And I only made a few videos. But they just happened to be something that weren't online at the time. They talked a lot about steroids and that kind of thing, steroids in wrestling. And it's something that I know a bit about, so I was talking about it, and I guess it was controversial because it sparked debate from both sides, so it engaged people. But these Durianrider videos, 6.2k videos in 16 years, so posting every single day for 16 years is true commitment. And as I say, when I looked at Actualize, when I looked at Durianrider and some other channels I'm going to mention, I noticed it took around 100 videos typically before people started getting six figures, 100,000 views or more. So you really have to be consistent with this. And if you are going to follow me, if you're going to subscribe to my channel and keep track of these kind of videos, you should see the same kind of trend. So my aim over the next year is to produce between 100 and 200 videos. And a bit like the other channels I've mentioned, the quality should improve, not just in terms of production. So of course, the image and audio quality will improve over time. But more importantly, the content will improve. So as I get better at articulating some of these ideas to you guys, you should see the quality improve in the same way. If it doesn't, it wouldn't be successful. So that's the only way you can be successful when you're creating massive output as an artist, is if you're improving the quality incrementally with each piece. And that's kind of inevitable. Unless you're really not putting in any effort to your artistic endeavor, it will just happen organically. As you create volumes of work, it will increase in quality. I'm fairly new to doing this as a video maker. I've been making videos my whole life. It's always been a hobby, but turning it into something where I'm trying to actually articulate ideas to an audience, that's new to me. However, I do have a lot of experience of creating large volumes of art in other fields. So I played guitar for around 10 years very consistently, multiple hours a day with a band, and constantly recording, not just with a band but with my own stuff, making instrumental guitar music. So I have many pieces of work that I've created that way, and I experienced the kind of step ladder of mastery there. You get your plateaus and then it increases, you get plateau and it increases, but actually recording and creating those pieces of work, it increases your skills so much more than anything else. Another example is martial arts. If you go to a gym and you train martial arts and you're sparring, even live sparring with a partner in a gym, nothing's going to be the same as going to a competition. The mentality of people in competitions is completely different. They're trying to really hurt you. Sometimes people in the gym are doing that as well, but usually even when they're going 100%, you're kind of friends and you're chatting, and you might go 100% on each other, but it's very different in a competition. It's the same way if you watch MMA sparring. Some people will spar hard, but it's nothing like when the lights are on and people are being paid millions of dollars to fight. The mentality is completely different, and the only way to get good at that type of artistry, if your artistry is creating fights or grappling or whatever you're doing, the only way to really pressure test that is to go in and do the real thing and competition test. And I definitely see that as a form of art. I mean, people can express themselves in so many different ways with striking and with grappling. I know for me, I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for around 7 years. And in that time, I've had around 52 competition fights now, or competition matches. And those 52 competition matches have helped me significantly. And if I hadn't have done them, if I didn't compete at all, I'd be much less skilled. Because it's not just about the techniques you learn, it's about doing it under pressure. And when you've got your family and your friends and your coaches and your teammates watching you, there's nothing like that pressure to perform. And so you have to master, or you have to attain a level of mastery in sports psychology to be able to perform well under those conditions. So it's a different skill altogether, because regardless of your sport, regardless of how skilled you are, being able to perform under pressure is really difficult. And it's the same way with traditional art. If you're kind of just doodling and you're sketching in a notebook, you might be able to produce a level of quality, but then when someone commissions you to do a piece, like let's say they want you to paint or draw their pet or something, and they're paying you money to do this, doing it under pressure and creating that art under a strict set of conditions is a different skill altogether. And having massive volumes of output, creating massive quantities of work will sharpen that skill. Nothing's going to sharpen that skill like doing it for real. So we've talked about a couple of channels here. We talked about actualize.org and Durianrider and Picasso. There's another great YouTube channel that I love if you're into aviation, Mentor Pilot. So he creates lots of different types of videos, accident summaries, and talks about new trends in aviation and that kind of thing. So as a private pilot myself, I do enjoy watching his videos. Now he has 638 videos, which he's created over, I believe, 7 or 8 years, something like that. So, just under 100 videos a year. He's created a lot of content there, because some of these videos require extensive research, and he has animations and all different types of things, and you'll see the exact same trend there. So this is becoming quite consistent now, around 100 videos to get some traction, and the quality greatly increasing. If you watch one of the more recent ones versus the early ones, it's night and day difference. So that's another example for you. Another classic example is Beethoven. Of course, he composed a lot of work. In fact, it was 722 pieces that he composed in his lifetime. He started when he was very young, when he was 11 years old, and so he did that for 45 years. So 45 years, 722 pieces. This was obviously before any digital assistance. Now you could output way more than that, but back then, when it was pen to paper and you were scoring the notes on a sheet paper for music, it would have taken a lot longer. So that is, when people talk about a life's work, that's a life's work. So extremely impressive. Leonardo da Vinci created around 2,500 drawings. Now he's a bit of an edge case in terms of his paintings, because although he's very well known for some of his paintings, we only know of around 20 that he made. But with artists that lived that long ago, we don't actually know exactly how much they created, how many paintings he really created, other than the ones that he's left. The same with the drawings. With the Picasso example, almost 2,000 paintings and over 12,000 drawings. So I wouldn't be surprised if in reality it was nearer that amount. But he left us 2,500 drawings, and these are extremely detailed as well. So he was clearly an artist that had massive output. I have another video called "How to Stop Making Excuses" and "How to Stop Making Excuses and Defeat Procrastination," I believe is the title. And there's a theme in that video: becoming a person of action and doing, and not spending so much time on planning and theory and thinking about when the right time is, but becoming a person of action. That's what's going to put you in that top 0.1%. And we have a theme here. These artists are people that took action and started producing before they were ready to. If any of these people that we've talked about, if Beethoven or Picasso or Leo from actualize.org or Leonardo da Vinci, if any of these people had said, I'm gonna wait until I'm ready, I'll do this, I'm going to refine my craft, I'm going to get really, really good at it, and then I'm going to start producing content. If any of them had done that, or had that mentality, in reality what would probably happen is they'd never create anything, because it's never good enough, you're never satisfied. And one really interesting thing about artists is their renowned masterpieces, or things that they're most well known for, they often really dislike before they release it. So there's some famous examples of movie directors who have made classic films and tried to convince the production company not to release the movie because they've been so disappointed with the end result, and then it goes on to be one of the best of all time. And the same things happen with music albums, with painters. So you're not very good at judging your own art, unfortunately. So if you think something's terrible, the likelihood is that it isn't. And if you've been practicing for a long time and producing work for a long time, there's a chance that it's a masterpiece or of very, very high quality instead. So in going back to the video, become a person of action, and this context in terms of being a content creator, in terms of being an artist, that means just doing it, and regardless of your skill level, just doing it. A really good example of this, someone was telling me recently about one of their favorite albums, one of their favorite music albums of all time, and I'd never heard of it. And it was a two-piece, and there was a guitar player and a drummer, and the drummer was experienced, but the guitar player had been playing guitar for 2 weeks. So this guy had been learning the guitar for 2 weeks. I'm not sure you could even call yourself a guitarist at that point. And he made this album, and sadly I can't remember the name, so I'll dig that out, but I'm sure you can find it based on what I've told you. And this person who I was speaking to loved it, said it's one of my favourite albums of all time, someone who'd only been playing for 2 weeks. Now, if he had the traditional mindset of, I'll wait until I'm good enough, he may have waited 4 or 5 years before making an album, because it takes the average person 4 or 5 years to become a competent guitar player. So 4 or 5 years later, would he have done it at all? And if he had, would it have been the great album that he made, or at least an album that some people love? Probably not. I went to a workshop many years ago, probably about 15 years ago. I went to a workshop in London in the UK, and there was a masterful guitar player there who I'd never seen or heard of before. And he was talking about some of his favourite guitar players, one of them being Joe Satriani. And he said that he'd actually, he'd either spoken to Joe or read an interview that he'd taken, where he was basically saying before his first album, before he made his first instrumental guitar album, he had this exact mindset. He didn't think he was good enough at the guitar yet to make an instrumental guitar album, because that's a very niche genre. The expectations by listeners of that genre are very high. It's almost exclusively musicians and guitar players themselves, and it can become a bit of a field of people just listening to who's the best guitar players. So anyway, Satriani was very reluctant initially, apparently, to record this album, because he didn't think he was good enough yet. He'd only been playing a couple of years himself. Well, as it turns out, he was a complete prodigy in terms of his playing and his uniqueness, and he had a very intense practice schedule. He probably played more in that 2 years than most people would play in 10, and so he made this album, and it was a hit. So he had that mindset of action, taking action and just doing it, and overcoming the self-doubt and just believing in yourself. Now, that's not to say that you're a masterful artist already, because maybe you're not, especially if you're early on in your path. If you've been learning an instrument or some kind of skill and you're only 6 months into it, you almost certainly are still at the beginner stage, but that doesn't mean you can't start now. Start creating now. And even if the first few hundred pieces you make, whether it's music, whether you're recording tracks, which is so easy to do at home these days, or whether you're a content creator and you're making videos, just do them and put them out there as well. Don't fall into the trap of, I'll record some music, or I'll make some videos, or I'll draw some pictures, but I'll just keep them and I'll release them when they're good enough. You'll fall into the same trap and never do it. So do it and get them out there, and publish them as soon as possible. There was actually a study done of artists who have been successful, and this is traditional painters, and they found that the ones that had the most chance for success were the ones that displayed their art in the widest range of galleries. So what they found is some artists who had been trying to break through for several years, what they often did is they would actually display their work at the same galleries over and over again. So there were some examples of some German painters who lived next to a couple of museums. They lived in a city, or a couple of galleries, and they would show their work there every month. They'd have a new piece. So they were actually trying the massive output approach, but they were showing it in the same place over and over again. And when they followed up 10 years later, most of these people were no longer practicing art, because they weren't making money from it, and they had to find some other way of making money. But the people that they followed up with 10 years later, who were still professional artists and who were making a decent living from it, were consistently the people that displayed their work in the widest range of galleries. So they might show a couple in their hometown, but they also travelled internationally and that kind of thing. So you can take that approach into your own art, whether it's traditional art like painting and trying to get your work into multiple galleries, or even if you're a competitive martial artist, don't just compete in your gym, or don't just compete at the same local competitions. Travel internationally, compete as much as you can with different people in different places and different countries. Your art might not even be something that you can create and tangibly see or feel. Your artistry might be interacting with people. You might love relationships. You might love making friends and having high quality relationships in your life. Well, in that case, practice the same approach. Try to widen your base as much as possible. Make friends from different cultures. Travel and make friends in different places and cultivate those relationships in lots of different places. Because if you consider it, the likelihood is your friends are probably in the same approximate demographic as you. They're probably the same similar age to you. Most of them are probably the same gender. Most of them are probably the same race. How many friends do you have if you're a white male? How many friends do you have from Southeast Asia or from Pakistan or from wherever? This principle can be applied to lots of different areas in your life. So hopefully that's been some useful information for you. If you're a striving artist, if you want to be any kind of creator, if you want to be a content creator or a traditional artist, or you just want to have something in your life that you've cultivated to a high quality, massive output is critical for success. Don't procrastinate and don't hold yourself back. Don't wait until you're ready. That's the key thing to take away from this video. Do not wait until you're ready. Start now. Go and create whatever it is you create and get it out there to as many different people as possible. And if you stick at this, you're pretty much lined up for success. There's very, very, very slim chances that if you spend the next 16 years making 6.2 thousand pieces of work, whether they're videos or pieces of music or whatever they are, and at least a handful of them aren't going to be absolute masterpieces. Even if less than 0.1% of your work was at that masterful level, that would still mean you would create several masterpieces in your lifetime. So if that doesn't encourage you, I don't know what will. Go out there, create massive output as an artist, and just get to it. I'll see you next time.